Who do you trust? So hard to say, especially today. According to a recent Pew survey of Americans, we trust these groups in this order, listed from most to least trusted: scientists, soldiers, police, public school principals, religious leaders, college professors, reporters, business leaders, and finally elected politicians. And our level of trust continues to decline. Today we live in an increasingly complicated and complex world and are constantly bombarded with information from a variety of sources that want us to believe they are telling us the truth. So we will do what they say. Each of us is genetically programmed by our DNA to trust our parents because we are fulfilling their prime directive, which is to survive long enough to pass their genes to the next generation. Parents want their offspring to survive, and that means their progeny must trust what they say. As children grow older, culture and its institutions teach them who or what they can trust. 70 or so years ago, most of us trusted respected figures of authority, such as teachers and preachers and important political or business leaders. But today we live in the age of skepticism. We have learned from our own experience, as well as current events, that we must decide for ourselves who to trust and what to believe. And here's an example illustrating that the problem has been around for a long time. I read a book review titled Truth and Lies After the Battle. It summarizes how both sides, Russia and Germany, distorted the truth about the Second World War's Battle of Stalingrad. And the problem is bigger today. We now have unreliable blogging sites, fake news, and cyberspace virtual realities that make the job of knowing who to trust that much harder. Here are some current examples. Politicians are preparing to blast out campaign promotions, telling us how good they are and how bad their opponents. News broadcasts report current events, but sometimes slant the story according to their point of view. Social media and blogging sites sometimes are accused of doing the same. I certainly don't know enough to tell you who or what source to believe, but I can tell you what I do to decide. I look for reliable evaluations of the source and compare the pluses and minuses presented by several. Then I make my contingent decision, which means I trust them for the time being, but not blindly. And I'd like to pick a particular topic regarding who or what to believe. America's role in recent wars, from the wars in Iraq and then through 9/11 and Afghanistan, and ongoing today in the war against terrorism, as well as the Ukrainian war. There is general agreement that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, and that was the main reason for going to war. But the Bush administration pushed ahead anyway. You can Google for reasons why and what the rebuttals are. And there are books saying that 9/11, which launched the war in Afghanistan on terrorism, might have been triggered by Middle East countries fighting back against the West's attempts to control them and install democracy, a form of government which they might not have wanted. And there are videos, some of which are banned in the West, plus articles written by political analysts and scholars who say that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the West, that is NATO, didn't acknowledge Russia's legitimate concerns. If they had, Putin today might have been more willing to work with NATO, and that could have avoided both the Crimean and current Ukrainian war. What about Hollywood's point of view? War movies produced over 50 years ago always portrayed the theme of war as black and white comparison. Our side is always right and the other is always wrong. But ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Hollywood has taken a more nuanced POV that shows both sides have a combination of good and bad. It is up to you, the viewer, to decide which side has more going for it, whether you are watching a movie or listening to current events. Of all the war movies I have seen recently, I find that reviewers often say that Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker give the most realistic picture of what much of today's actual combat is like. News broadcasts will not show its enormity, and they announce that the edited versions of graphic footage they are about to show may be disturbing to some viewers. If you want to see what battlefield action today looks like, you might consider watching 2 movies I mentioned above. And military game players, beware. Actual battle is inhumanly grim, not the shoot-'em-up virtual reality you see. But no matter the point of view, I think everyone would agree that the civilians trapped in the middle are the big losers. That has been the truth ever since wars began. I feel so sorry for the brave Ukrainian people. Would any of us be as stoic as they if our world were being destroyed? That's a tough question to answer. Not long ago, I binge-watched movies supposedly telling the truth how reporters exposed government cover-ups of the Vietnam War, Watergate, and the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And like all the items I've touched on in this talk, only you can decide you can trust the answer you come up with. And that ends this video podcast, which maybe gave you a different point of view on who or what you can trust. I hope you got something from it, and I thank you for listening. So bye-bye until next time.